Hey, it's Sparky, Fifer, 1250 AM, The Fan in beautiful Milwaukee, Wisconsin, along with our guy, Nathan Marzion. You can follow Nathan on Twitter at Nathan Marzion. You can follow me at Sparky Radio. And as always, streaming live on the Odyssey Sports YouTube page here on a Monday evening. You can always catch us the podcast in their entirety or different cuts of the podcast on your Odyssey app or wherever you download your favorite podcast app. We're talking about a piece written by Eric Nehm in The Athletic. As I said before, if you don't subscribe to The Athletic simply for Eric Nehm, then you are missing the boat. There's a lot of good writers on The Athletic, obviously a lot of great national guys and so forth, but Eric Nehm's Bucks coverage, really, really good. Just like Jim Ozarski's Bucks coverage with the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. They both do a great job. I wish they had a Brewers beat writer for The Athletic, but that's for another time. All right, so Eric Nehm has suggested 3 lineups for Adrian Griffin, the new Bucks head coach. And I'm guessing, Nathan Marzion, that you had a chance to look these over and form your opinions of them earlier today. Would that be correct?
Yeah, very briefly, but I did.
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you that I don't know if I like any of them, but we'll go over them nonetheless. The first one I absolutely hate and despise. If I could be any more stronger, let me know. Giannis at center. In all scenarios, and I don't care who the hell you put on the court with him, I do not want Giannis at center. Now, if you want to tell me it's for a possession, okay, I'll listen to you for a possession. If you're telling me it's going to be for 5 and 10 minute stretches, I don't like it. If you're telling me it's going to be for anything longer than that, I hate it and despise it. Now, these lineups are not his starting lineups, to be clear. These are lineups he's saying that they could play in different situations in a game, depending on the opponent and so forth. So just to clarify, this is not what he is saying they should start with an opening tip-off to get Eric Nehm of The Athletic correct. So this is his lineup with our guy Giannis at center. Drew Holiday, Pat Connaughton, Chris Middleton, Jay Crowder, and Giannis as the center with the starting 5. The reason I don't like Giannis at center is because I don't want Giannis having to guard bigs on the other side of the floor. I have no interest. I don't want Giannis having to be guarded by centers on the other side of the floor if he doesn't have to. I'd much rather have a center dealing with Brook Lopez than dealing with Giannis, if at all possible. Now, in the NBA today, there's a lot of switching and so forth that happens, and I get that. But I don't want him at center. And to be honest, I don't know if Giannis even wants to play center. I'm guessing he wouldn't either for the reasons I laid out. But either way, Nathan Marzion, your thoughts on the first lineup suggestion by Eric Nehm of The Athletic?
I definitely do not have a big problem with it. And he did put out some stats below that kind of show that, okay, the Bucks actually have been pretty decent with Giannis at center. Like last year, they had a plus 10.1 net rating, plus 7.4 the year before that. 2019-20 was plus 17.9. And with this, as you said, like this, it's more of a, do you want to see this a little bit? Nobody's asking for this to be the primary lineup and the starting lineup and stuff like that. But I don't mind it at all if it's something that they're going to use, a little bit and maybe just to keep Brook a little bit fresh and I don't know. I like when they go to Giannis sometimes at the center because it does give them more versatility. There's really, you look at this lineup, it's Drew, Pat, Chris, Jay, Giannis. Not a ton that you can really attack defensively there if those guys are all playing near their best. And it kind of reminds me of the lineup that they sometimes went to in the 2021 playoff run, except you just would replace PJ with Jay, which is what we're basically hoping Jay can be, is like the PJ type replacement. And so at that point, you're going with, Drew, Pat, Chris, Jay, who's your PJ, and Giannis. That's kind of what they went to in some of those finals games to close it out. And, again, if Pat Connaughton's hitting his threes well, we know like what he can bring if he's doing that. And so I don't mind that as a potential lineup to throw out there sometimes, especially like in the playoffs. And just, again, having Giannis at center defensively opens up more possibilities, allows you to switch everything, and there's really nobody you can just attack on the perimeter completely. So I'm definitely more okay with it than you are.
I'm curious to see what Adrian Griffin is going to do defensively. Because, playing man-to-man and drop for Lopez has been the way that Brook Lopez has come onto the scene as this dominant defender. So when Lopez is out, because I'm assuming that's how they're going to play when he's on the floor. And if they don't, I'd be surprised. Then are they going to go to a different type of defense where they're going to be switching constantly? But when Lopez is on the floor, they won't do that. Because I would be shocked if they're switching constantly with Lopez at center on the floor, Nathan.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that you can do a little bit with Brook. But again, if you're doing it full time or if you're really doing it a ton, it's probably gonna end up coming back to bite you. He can come out in the drop a little bit and he can defend in that mid range area decently well as he did in the finals, but he's not someone that you want to be switching, guard him onto guards on the perimeter and stuff like that. And so again, that's why I'm kind of like they do need to go to Giannis at center more, I think, just in general, just for that reason of it gives you more flexibility. And some of this, I mean, these lineups too, it's dependent on matchups too. If you're playing in a series where, okay, you don't need Brooks defense quite as much.
Like Name points out, it's a small ball lineup essentially, like if you were playing Golden State or something.
Yeah, if we're playing Philly with Embiid, no, you want Brook Lopez out there to defend Embiid. But in certain situations, it's like, no, we can live without Brook Lopez on the floor. We don't need his defense quite as much. And now you've got a guy that can make the defense more versatile and in Giannis at center. And then obviously it just gives you a little bit more athleticism overall on offense, and just gives you a little bit more options there with Brook not being out there. So I don't know. It's one that I'm perfectly fine with in plenty of situations.
Lineup 2 by Eric Nehm of The Athletic. And I'm not going to go over and read all the stuff of his reasoning of the lineups necessarily. Marzion's a numbers guy, so he'll read you the stats that he gives. But other than that, and there's lots of numbers, way more than Marzion gave to that first one. But you can go subscribe to The Athletic and read all these reasonings. Team tempo, and that's what he calls it. Andre Jackson, no. Right there. I didn't even have to read the rest of the dang lineup. No. G League, yes. No to being on the floor with any of the starters.
All right. Finish reading off the lineup.
Marzion Beauchamp, no to Marzion Beauchamp. He's not going to score 83 in the NBA. No, he's not. Malik Beasley, okay, fine. Giannis, fine. Bobby Portis, okay. I'm not all about team tempo, and I get it, Eric. I get it, right? John, wants young guys, wants to be more athletic, so forth, right? But they gotta be able to shoot. Yes, they do, and they're not there yet, right? So, in order to walk, you have to crawl. In most situations, in order to run, you have to walk. We're not to the crawling standpoint yet with Andre Jackson, so we're nowhere close to being able to walk. That we're not there yet. Beauchamp is probably at the crawling stage and trying to pull himself up onto a couch to learn how to start to walk at this point. It's probably where Beauchamp is at. Neither one are ready to be out there for any extended amount of time. Especially, think about this. Giannis can't shoot. Beasley can in stretches, yes. Bobby Portis can. But then Beauchamp and Andre Jackson can't. What are you doing with that lineup? Like, there's just absolutely no way, no chance. And you're have Jackson run the point, I guess, maybe because he did it in college or whatever the deal is going to. No, I'm totally out in this one. Of the three, that's my least favorite. Go ahead, Nathan Marzion.
Yeah, as you said, and Marzion isn't necessarily a total non-shooter right now, but I mean, it's still to see, but there's at least two non-shooters out there in Andre Jackson and Giannis, and then another iffy shooter in Marzion if Bobby Portis isn't shooting. If Bobby Portis isn't shooting well, he could be another iffy shooter because there was a long stretch last year where he didn't shoot very well. Really, the only guy that you can rely on as a shooter is Malik Beasley. And again, I know we don't always just need shooters out there that can't do anything else, but you can't go too far away from the shooting. You can't just put out 5 athletic guys and be like, okay, cool, this is our line. We saw the Bucks do that in 2015 when they had Michael Carter-Williams and Giannis and Greg Monroe, and then it's like, okay, but like who can shoot? And all of a sudden, and Jabari and stuff, it was like, okay, we just don't have enough offense now. We got the length, we got the athleticism, but we don't really have the actual basketball skill here. So I don't mind giving Andre Jackson a little bit of bench minutes during the regular season when it doesn't matter as much.
Oh, he can sit on the bench for as many minutes as he can handle. I'm all about bench minutes. Sit right there on the end of the bench.
No,
make sure it doesn't fly up in the air, and that's your job. I'm lots of bench minutes, all about it. Sit on the bench. Yes, agreed.
No, minutes with the second unit
on the floor.
I mean, in the regular season, I don't see the harm in it. It's not if he plays 8 minutes a game, 6 to 8 minutes a game, and you're like, whatever. Like, is that really going to kill your chances of winning the basketball game? Probably not.
Fine.
And I mean, obviously, in any type of big games or must win or late in the fourth quarter, no, you're not playing the guy. But I don't mind throwing him out there. I I said it when they drafted him. I don't know how he fits alongside Giannis. That's why I kind of just assumed like they might just not play him with Giannis, at least to start, because I don't know how you do when Giannis needs space and Andre Jackson cannot shoot. Um, I
At
like him
all.
with Beasley because Beasley can, come around off screens and stuff. And I think the complementary stuff that Andre Jackson does fits kind of what Beasley brings in his shooting and all that. Even with like a Grayson Allen too, who isn't a huge movement shooter, which again is more what we need. And another reason why I just didn't quite love the pick for us in Andre Jackson. I like the player. I just was like, we don't really have a ton of. He would thrive in a situation like Golden State where he can play like the Draymond type role,
Yes.
and you've got Steph and Clay running around,
Yes.
and you've got cutters, and you've got all that,
Yep.
and he can pass and he can
Right.
set screens and do all that. We don't really have that type of we don't have dynamic players like that thrive off the ball and are great cutters and all of that and movement shooters. So there's not a ton of guys that fit super well with him. I would just probably guess that. I mean, I would say I like him with Malik Beasley. I like him with Grayson because they're two shooters that can at least come off screens and stuff. Him, like the only thing I can see with him with Giannis is off of like if Giannis is cutting to the hoop and he can throw passes to Giannis, but I just don't know how the spacing works there. And same with Marzion. Like Marzion can be a cutter slasher, but I just don't think the spacing works very well in this one.
Thank you. I mean, you did well trying to talk around and try and make it feel like he might be able to get out there and do something. I mean, if nothing else, you got 6 fouls with him. So just make sure your guy doesn't throw up a dunk, right? Just foul him hard, whoever it is. Just make sure you can do that, and we'll worry about the rest later.
But I will say, we hold on. Can we just say is it fair to say we should at least be giving these young guys chances here?
No!
There's no, not in the playoffs, not when it matters. There's no downside to doing it.
Listen here.
In the regular season.
Stop.
Like when we were last season, we played Jordan Wara so many minutes when we could have just given him to Beauchamp. What good is that doing us now? Like, sure, it might have won us a few. I probably didn't even make the difference because Wara sucked too. But
yes,
it's like, okay, we had the best regular season record, but like that doesn't really matter. The
Let me
record
give you an
doesn't
example.
matter.
I'm going to use football as an example. So I do a podcast called Curd and Long. You can download as well with Ryan Horvath of BetMGM tonight. And he is all on Justin Fields is all of this, and the Bears are going to be that team, and get your money on the Bears, and blah, blah, blah. And it's to the point of nauseam with me. And I just lost my mind today because it's like, well, with Jordan Love, we don't really know what's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. I go, right. And with Justin Fields, we do. He has sucked since he's been in the league. He threw for over 200 yards twice all of last season. And Ryan's response was, he can make all the throws. He's got crap around him. I watched him at Ohio State. I know what he can do. Using that logic, we know Andre Jackson can't shoot. We saw his college career. Like, I'm not making this up. Like, guy's one of the best 3-point shooters, doesn't play well in the summer league shooting. And I go, dude, he stinks. Summer league, can't shoot. Even though he shot well in college, summer league tells me he's not an NBA player. Let's move on. No, we have college to go off of that he can't shoot. They knew when they drafted him, he can't shoot. And now they've got to try and figure out how to make this whole thing work. And like I said before, I'm sure Adrian Griffin signed off on this before Horst made the pick that, yes, I'll make it work. I know how to use him. And I'm sure that's probably what happened. But I don't think we're making up stories here, Marzion, on the fact the kid can't shoot.
No, we're not. I'm not saying we're making anything up. He can't shoot. But I'm saying, what's the downside in playing him and Marzion minutes, even if they're not quite ready, even if they don't look great? What's the downside in, hey, we're giving you some regular season minutes off the bench, and what? I just don't see why that's a bad thing. Like again, last year, was Marzion ready to play a ton of minutes? No,
Nope.
But I would have much rather seen him. It would be more beneficial to the team because they're going to win games right now. Giannis, Chris, Drew, Brook, they're going to win games right now. Like they're going to win a ton of games. You might as well play the guys that can potentially help your future because you're going to win right now. There's no the benefit to playing. I'm trying to think of someone off the bench. Some end of the bench guy over.
This is the point. Your window is 2 years, right? We agree, right? Because of Lopez's contract, Holiday's contract, Giannis's contract, Middleton. You're essentially looking at 2 years, and then they've got to make a decision if this thing is getting blown up or what they're doing going forward. And Giannis has to make a decision of what he's doing going forward. So if your window is 2 years, and I understand, well, let's see what they can do in 3 or 4 years and give them all the run. Well, that very well may be, but you may not have anything left by the time we get to that point. It's about now, right now. So if you're telling me I play Andre Jackson 8 or 9 minutes in the regular season means I might be able to get him some playoff run, and that's where it's going to happen, and you think he's that close to being playoff caliber kid,
He's not getting playoff run. He's not getting playoff run.
Right.
It's
so
just,
let him go play a ton of minutes in the G League and get a lot of run versus wasting away up here getting 5 or 6 minutes a night.
I just think 8 to 9 minutes in the NBA is valuable to a rookie, or and then Marzion getting 15 to 20 minutes would be valuable to a second-year player. And you see what you have. You see how these guys look in the NBA, and you're not guessing, and you're not saying, well, they looked really good in the G League. Is it going to? It's like, I just want to see how they look in the NBA. I want to see how close they are. They're not going to be great right away. They're not going to be playoff guys. Marzion, best case scenario, could maybe get to that if it goes perfectly this year, but I'm not expecting that. But I just, again, don't see the downside of giving them some minutes off the bench just to see what you have. And that's what we complained about with Bud a lot, was he doesn't play the young guys. He just kind of lets them sit there. He's going to play Jordan Warren and George Hill instead of his young guys, and who exactly what you're getting out of, but it's not very good, and you might as well just play the young guy. That's how I'm feeling now. I'm like, just play the young guy. You might as well. If you're going to give 8 minutes off the end of the bench to someone, I'd rather it be someone that I'm just like, okay, we're giving them experience and we're getting to see a little glimpse of, what they're becoming. We're giving them some type of experience.
All right, let's move on. Topic number 2. Now, this was taken off of Twitter. It's not necessarily Bucks related, but it is NBA related. And I sent it to Nathan earlier today because I wanted to get into it. This is from Bobby Marks. Now, if you don't know who Bobby Marks is, he's a ESPN NBA front office insider, yada, yada, yada. So he tweets out, there was a healthy debate this past weekend on if the middle class, quote unquote, of the NBA has been eliminated with the new CBA, and there are 2 tiers, the minimum players and the maximum player. Instead of looking at salaries as a whole, we examined it as a percentage against the cap. Okay. So right there, once you do that, you're telling me that you really don't want to get into the true numbers necessarily, but you want to make it look one way or the other. Either way, the 0.8 to 4.9% group will always be top heavy because of player selection in the draft. For example, 129 of the 259 players in the NBA in 2023-24 are draft picks selected in the past 4 years. So you're talking half the league, literally,
is basically on the rookie contract.
50%, right, are draft picks selected in the past 4 years, right, and the rookie contract still. The 5 to 9.9% group are players with ranging from 6.8 to 13 million. 29 players, 6% out of 467 players this season are on max contracts. So 29 players are on max contracts. Is that a lot? Is that not a lot? I'm not quite sure, depending on how you want to kind of look at it at this point. But the one thing that's interesting is when you look at that, 6.2% or whatever, it's not in his graph that he put out how many guys were max players in 2022-23, or I should say in 2021 or in 2020. He doesn't give you that stat or that number. That's what I would be interested in knowing. How many max players were in the NBA 2 years ago? How many max players were in the NBA 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, or 5 years ago? How many max players? Has it always been around 29 every year, or is that becoming more and more, and then that middle tier is becoming less and less? I don't think he did a great job of explaining it, unless I'm missing something. Nathan Marzion.
Yeah, no, I mean, but I think the main argument that he was making is that, he highlighted it in the graph, was the 5 to 10% of the cap guys, which is kind of the middle area. They're like just slightly below the middle. There's much more of those guys than there have been in the past 3 years. And so it's kind of showing that, okay, we're not completely getting rid of the middle guys. Yes, the money's getting bigger, but just because the money gets bigger, you have to look at the percentage of the cap, because if the cap increases, well then, salaries increasing doesn't matter. It evens out. It's not the same thing. Giving a guy $40 million a year now isn't the same as giving a guy $40 million a year 5 years ago. 5 years ago, that was like the top guy in the league. Now that's maybe the 15th best guy in the league going forward. So it's I mean, I understand what it shows, and I understand that it's just kind of a way of saying, hey, yeah, the CBA seems crazy and everything, but it's really not having as big of a difference. It's not eliminating the middle class of the NBA like people are saying it is. Um, there's still plenty of those guys more than ever in that 5 to 10% range, making, like, I think he put it in his thing, about 7 to 13 million a year. So, and again, that's pretty low for now. That's pretty low compared to what the salary cap now. Like, that's a pretty low percentage.
Nate Jones, who's another guy I follow on Twitter, who I enjoy following, and he is a big NBA guy, NBA agent, marketer, all that stuff with Godwin Sports. He says it's funny because we just saw Dylan Brooks get 80 million plus, and people are talking about a dying middle class. And obviously, Dylan Brooks is not worth $80 million, and that was on them for paying him $80 million plus. But yeah, I mean, from that standpoint, you are right. I mean, guys that are probably getting overpaid to a certain degree, some of these guys, for what they're getting. Now, again, before this salary cap happened, as Nate Jones points out, look at all the money Michael Jordan was making compared to the rest of the roster. I mean, those guys, there was no limit on how much money Michael Jordan could make. He could make as much as the Chicago Bulls were willing to pay him at that point. And you look at Major League Baseball, Shohei Ohtani is going to get $500 million. I'm not even joking, folks. He's going to get a $500 million contract. That is what Ohtani is about to get. So as a fan, do you like it better with a cap on player contracts, or would you prefer it to be wide open and not have a cap on player contracts? The NFL does not have a cap on their player contracts. They have a hard cap on overall salaries, but not on player contracts. The Major League Baseball has kind of a soft cap on contracts or on the roster, but not on player contracts. To me, Major League Baseball and the NFL both would be better off doing what the NBA is doing, having a cap on player contracts. Now, again, their unions aren't going to be stupid enough to fall for what the NBA union did, but that would be a better play, I think, for those two sports, doing it kind of like the NBA does it, Nathan.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there does need to be a cap, and I think it's definitely beneficial because, as you said, those top guys otherwise are just making such a ridiculous portion of the salary cap. And at least in the NBA, yes, these guys are getting ridiculous contracts. But again, when they get the ridiculous contract, it's because the salary cap is going to just keep going up and going up and going up. And so, again, Jaylen Brown making $60 million, $70 million a year. Yes, that is a ton of money, and he's still going to be one of the top 5 paid players at that time, but it's not the same as getting paid $60 million this year. Like, it's not.
But Nathan, will he be a top 5 player at any point?
No, I mean, no, but I'm just saying it's not. You can't look at that and say, you can't look at that and look at it as 70 million in today's terms. It's 70 million. It's essentially the same as about 54 million today, which is still like the number 1 paid player in the league, but it's not, it's close to the other guys. It's not some number that's just way out there from everyone else. That's what people just, again, don't always think about when these contracts come out for the future. And, Anthony Davis just signed a 3-year, $190 million thing.
There's no way he'll be healthy enough to play half those games, probably.
Yeah, but it's just, again, you just have to look at it at least a little bit of them, especially with the Jaylen Brown thing, where it's like, well, their choices are either sign him or don't. Well, okay, I mean, if you're I'll pay him like a top 5 player, even though he's not. I'll pay him like a top 5 player just to keep him around, then lose him for nothing. I'm not saying it's totally like smart all the time, but I just think it's not as, these contracts, again, aren't as crazy as people think because they're far down the road.
I would have traded him for Lillard. Been saying it for like 3 or 4 months. Okay, let's move on. Topic number 3. This is a non-NBA topic, but it is a basketball topic. All this realignment going on in college sports. People are talking about it from a football perspective, but there are basketball ramifications with this. This isn't Notre Dame where it's independent football and then they're affiliated with a conference. All of these programs that are moving, even though we're talking about it from a football program standpoint, are also going to be affected in basketball. So now you look at, say, the Big Ten, and you add Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA to this Big Ten basketball conference. And by the way, they're not done. I think they're going to get to 20 at least at minimum. It'll be like the Big 20 instead of the Big 10. I think 20 is where it ends. And my guess is they're going to go after the ACC next because they don't have Big Ten Network or any roots down in that part of the country, and they're trying to make this a national type conference. So it would only make sense they go raid the ACC next. But either way, as of right now, adding those 4 schools to the Big Ten conference, what do you think that does for the Big Ten in basketball, Nathan? Knowing, by the way, he's a Marquette fan, but he can talk about this objectively from a conference standpoint. Go ahead, Nathan.
I mean, so just on the surface level, I never understood it because I always looked at the Big Ten as Midwest. It's always kind of been that way, and like I don't see UCLA, USC, those Western conference, like those West schools as Big Ten schools. I just don't. So that part of it with just the whole geography thing, I'm not totally down for. Having 18 teams, just seems a little ridiculous. Like that just split it into 2. I don't know.
I mean, think about it. Big 12, same thing. The Big 12 is going to be right around 20 teams.
Yeah,
so by the time the SEC is done, they're going to be the same too. They're all going to be right around 20 before this is all said and done.
Yeah, Big 10 is going to have 18. Big 12 is going to have 16 because they're getting Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, Utah, losing Texas, Oklahoma to the SEC, who would then have 16, and then the ACC is going to keep 15. And then my Big East
is not going to mark my words. The ACC is not going to survive this. There's no way.
My Big East is going to have 11.
But that Big East, your Big East is never going to get touched because they're basketball only schools. So
yeah, I know.
That's going to stay as is. The problem is, I think, if we talk about this from that standpoint, is it's going to hurt y'all because what's going to happen is you're going to have so many schools. I mean, think about it. Right now, the Big Ten's getting what, 7, 8 teams, sometimes 9 out of what they've got going on for an NCAA tournament. Now you're telling me they're going to have, say, 20, right? Now they might get 10 or 12 teams out of the Big Ten. And that's just going to take away from the smaller conferences for at-large bids. And they're just going to say, well, strength of schedule. Look at how many teams they got all coming out of here. And from a basketball standpoint, for the Big Ten, I don't know. I mean, USC, they've been going at it for a while now, but they've never been really able to get over the hump recently. UCLA, that's a good program and has been for a while. Mick Cronin's a great coach. Love him a lot. Washington, Oregon's got a cool looking court, I guess. But outside of that, they're a try-hard program that gets in the NCAA tournament and gets beat every year, normally relatively early. So I'm not too worried about that. But you are going to add, 3 NCAA tournament teams, USC, UCLA, and Oregon, that are pretty much in the tournament every year. That will improve strength of schedule, and that's going to improve everything, I think, from a basketball standpoint. But again, travel is going to be involved here, and you're not playing 1 game a week like you are in football. You're playing 2 or 3 games a week. So I would assume if Wisconsin plays USC out at USC, that UCLA and Oregon will be in short order right there after that, and they'll just stay out there for, say, a week and a half before they come back.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this. I didn't realize too that this season, so not even 2024, but 2023, BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, UCF are all going Big 12. I didn't even know that.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's very interesting. So what's happening to the American Conference? Is it just losing those schools? Like they just...
I would assume so. I mean, there's so much going on right now. Right now, the question is Pac-12's got 4 schools. So
yeah, Pac-12 only has 4. American, I mean, I'm just saying because American now is losing Houston, Cincinnati. I think, what was UCF in? Were they in the American? I don't know. But that's some of their top schools. Like that conference is going to be not very good.
And Pac-12 has 4 schools.
Yeah.
That's not enough for a conference.
Stanford, Oregon State, Cal, and Washington State.
Right. So now they've got to figure out where to go. And I heard one guy suggest on the radio that Stanford goes independent and says, we're going to play independent football and we'll affiliate with all of our other sports with somebody else like Notre Dame does. Right. So go that way. But California is not going to do that. Washington State and Oregon State aren't going to do that. So where do they end up? And that, again, that conference is going to be done by 2024. That will no longer be a conference. They're all going to be gone. My guess is they're all going to end up in the Mountain West. That's where I figure.
I feel bad for Bill Walton because he loves the Pac-12.
Well,
that guy is always, every time I turn on a Bill Walton game at 10 p.m. on ESPN, he's always preaching about how the Pac-12 is the conference of champions.
Oh yeah. Well, no longer. He's probably crying over this. It's about done. But I do think the Big East is going to get screwed in all this realignment stuff because of football, because there's going to be a lot less at-large bids coming out of that conference probably because of the reason of being so many teams in these other conferences.
I would say that, I mean, if they were coming from poor conferences to bigger conferences, I could maybe understand that more because the strength of schedule will be changing drastically. But I mean, the Pac-12 was good before too. It's not like, I mean, are the Big 12 and Big 10 better? Yes. But I don't know. I don't think they're going to have that much better of a strength of schedule by playing Big 10 teams than they are Pac-12 teams. I don't know. I don't think it'll make a little bit of a difference for sure. And maybe some of those teams. Go ahead.
But think about basketball schedule. And I don't know how they do the basketball schedule as far as rotating, but I'm assuming you're not going to play all of your conference anymore, right? So what happens if they don't play Northwestern on a given year, but they play USC? They don't play Rutgers on a given year, but they play UCLA. They don't play Nebraska on a given year, and they play Oregon. I mean, if you take out 3 dogs from the Big Ten, replace them with those 3 tournament teams, that's when the schedule is going to be through the roof, and it's going to be a brutal schedule for the Big Ten. And by the way, Greg Gard, good luck. Good luck. Because McIntosh already made the change in football. Get ready. Spotlight's going to be on you now with them adding more conference NCAA tournament teams to this conference. Greg Gard, I think, is going to be under even more heat than he was already, Nathan.
But just going back to what you said about the schedule, you said there's going to be, they don't play Northwestern, but they play UCLA. But there's going to be teams that also play Northwestern and don't play UCLA. It's going to. I just think it'll even out a little.
Correct.
Bit.
Right.
I don't think
yes.
you're
going to be able to play everybody.
Yeah, but I think in the end it won't make that much of a difference in terms of like from all these conferences together, how many bids are they getting into the NCAA tournament? I don't think it's going to be drastically different than it would be if we just kept the Pac-12 together, because that they would still get, some teams in. Well, now you're just kind of eliminating those and just spreading them out across the rest of these 4.
Sure.
I'm not sure if it'll make that much of a difference overall in terms of hurting like a Big East or something like that.
Yeah, good point. He is Nathan Marzion. Follow him on Twitter at Nathan Marzion. You can follow me at Sparky Radio. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of Green and Grow. We'll be back at it again on Thursday night. Enjoy the rest of your day. And thanks for listening. Appreciate it. Download on your Odyssey app or wherever you download your favorite podcast at. Tell a friend, tell a family.